Wonder what the 6 most impactful rap albums of the 90s were? Let's talk about it.
Kick ass!
Welcome back to Grown Band Boys. I'm your man, Chad, hip-hop plant. And with me, as always, is my man, B.A., the baddest man in Texas. B.A., what is good,
First of all, we talking
brother?
hip, so you know it's healthy. I'm here for it.
Oh, we all here for it, because we talking about the 6 albums that shaped rap in the 90s. And this is going to be a lot of fun. Now, these are going to be in no particular
say that
order,
part again.
because I have no interest.
No.
I have no interest in fighting
Ain't
that
nobody
fight
got time
with
for
anybody.
that. I got.
No, this is a long fight. This is a fist fight here. I'm not having this with anybody. While you're here, though, go ahead and smash that like and subscribe. Trying to get to 1,000 subscribers by August, so help us out with that. Smash it, because we like to hear that sound. All right, so we're just going to run down the list of the albums. All you old heads out there, you Gen Xers, you 90s rap, you 2000s rap, you golden era folks, get your ears ready, because we're about to mention 6 of the biggest albums that you remember from your own golden era. We're going to start with number 1, and I guess it's the good one to start with. Illmatic by Nas, 1994. I'll start because I think it is completely fair to say that this changed storytelling in hip-hop. I think Nas was the birth of the street poet. He even said it himself. He felt like he was speaking for every young black man growing up in the projects. And I think that was this kid looking out of his window and poetically expressing what he was seeing. And that kind of storytelling with the lyrical gymnastics that he went through. You said this in one of our previous episodes. After he dropped this, for the remaining 6 years of the 90s, I feel like everybody else was chasing him. So what'd you think about it?
Put it in the categories that it is. Arguably the greatest hip hop album ever. Top 5 this, top 3 that. But I think you touched on a very interesting point when you said the cultural impact was very poetic. It gave it a poet. Now understand, this isn't a 26, 27-year-old person dropping this album. This is virtually a teenager. Is he old enough to go to the military? Yeah. But he ain't grown. The only way the algorithm doesn't love Illmatic if it was released next week is if you are a hater. There really isn't anybody on the planet that Illmatic didn't speak to if you're a real fan of hip hop. This was a hip hop album. This was a work of art in hip hop in 1994 that wasn't like anything we had before. Illmatic kind of opened the door for rappers to get more comfortable. And like you said, he was speaking for all the people in the project, but more importantly, he was telling people he knew stories. And that's what I love about Nas is Nas never claimed to be a diehard street cat. He's always told you that he is telling stories from his perspective.
So what'd you think about the production on it? This is one of the first times we had this many producers on an album. He had 5 producers: Premier, Pete Rock, Q-Tip, Large Professor, and Let. How did 5 producers make this sound like a cohesive album? It did. And I think that was something that was new to a lot of artists. We're like, wait a minute. I can bring in 4 or 5 different producers, and I can get them all on the same page.
Let's go there. Let's first of all, I believe the word we're all looking for when you talk about production of this album was a masterclass. That is what it was. First of all, there's no such way on God's green earth that I know of that Large Professor, DJ Premier, Pete Rock, and Q-Tip can produce anything and it be bad in a healthy competition. You got 2 tracks, I got 2 tracks. Let's just call it what it is. I go to DJ Premier and I get 2 tracks. Large Professor knows Premier did 2 tracks. So he knows what that level is. Pete Rock knows, now I got Premier, I got Professor, now I know what this level is. Q-Tip is like, hey, I'm young, I'm doing my thing. Lesser's like, oh, y'all think I'm soft. Y'all trying to play me soft. I think it was healthy. It was healthy in the production, which made it so good. But you brought up a very interesting point. When people argue about Illmatic being what it is also one of the first hip hop albums where you had so many majors producing on it. So when we talk about why is it held in such high esteem, this is why. It's not just about the bars, and the bars were enough in most cases, but it was also about the production, which most people don't talk about. But this was very New York, in and out. It was very New York.
So very 30 years old and still arguably the greatest hip hop album ever. The legacy of it is tremendous. I don't know very many 30-year-old albums that are still considered the greatest. Like it's almost like a wire to wire season. You know, it's almost like a undefeated championship season for that album to go this long. Now I think there's plenty of other albums to debate, but we can leave it there for now and move on to the second album that was one of the most impactful albums of the 1990s that shaped rap in the 90s was The Chronic by Dr. Dre. I don't think anybody needs to talk about the impact. There's one question that I really liked when I was going through all of this is George Clinton's DNA being all over the Chronic sound, how it sounded sonically. And I like that a lot. I mean, because it was P-Funk becoming G-Funk. And that's what the birth of this was. And I know you were a huge G-Funk fan. So what did that mean out west when G-Funk hit
First
like
of all,
that?
shout out Warren G. About how the phrase G-Funk got coined. This is just a sound. This is just a sound of trying to be different. You got a bunch of guys out west who enjoy funk albums. Fly Stone, George and the Parliament, like they just enjoy funk. Well, you can't be the P-Funk because there's only one P-Funk. So you can't redo that. But what you do is you take a laid-back melodic sound that the Bay, LA, like California is just known for. They're very laid back and they're layering bar for bar for bar. Like LA used to write a 16 and it was really word, rhyme, word, rhyme, word, rhyme. And it was so you caught everything because it was never really meant for radio. It was something meant to ride to. And the G-Funk gave you 808 drums with rhyme schemes that you could repeat and hear and understand. And of course, it gave you the best version, I say, of Snoop Dogg. Period. Right?
Yeah, that was something I was thinking, like when you were talking about the lazy flow that the West Coast has, that kind of the lazy lifestyle, the laid back lifestyle that they have, not lazy, but laid back lifestyle they have. And Snoop fits that. But Dre's production was kind of like cinematic funk.
Yeah, ooh, that's a good word.
And that was just a great mesh. Somebody being so laid back, because you couldn't have a DMX style rapper on that kind of sound. Never would have played. They were just two things that, like we've said plenty of times before, styles make fights. And these were two styles that just fit perfectly. And we saw it this past year. Snoop did an album that Dre did, and it didn't perform all that well, but the album was a solid album. And Dre's production was still everything Dre's production has always been.
I think what it really did was where Illmatic gave us a very New York sound from production to rock. Like it was a very New York thing. The Chronic gave us was a hold up bruh moment. Hey homie. It gave us a very Cali thing. And here's the thing, we're not talking about Cam, we're not talking about Razzcazz or Too Short, E40, Ice-T, like King T, NWA even. We know the West Coast had a sound, but it was never definitive enough for the East Coast to take notice until the Chronic. The Chronic made both coasts, and I say both because the South is its own coast. It made the East Coast and the South go, okay, they're here. For the East Coast, it's like, all right, we got to tighten up. For the South, it's like, we got to do something different because they are doing that and they are doing well.
Hey, but just from the nostalgia standpoint, man, you had nothing but a G thing. Let Me Ride, Dre Day, Lil Ghetto Boy, Stranded on Death Row. That thing hit on just about every level, man. Because Lil Ghetto Boy,
hanging in them ghetto streets.
No, man, tell them songs, you sing those songs to yourself and take you back to that memory.
It gave us 5 MCs out of that thing.
Well, it was also the first album from a debut label.
Yes.
And a debut artist.
Death Row, never thought I'd say this. Kudos to you, Suge Knight, for this. And I say, if you're going to introduce yourself to the world and the Chronic is the way you do it, I don't know any other way. I don't know anybody else who did that. You might argue 36 Chambers, Southern Playalistic on some levels. But when we're talking about not introducing an artist, but a label introduction, I don't know anybody else who came in the game.
And that's an easy transition to move to the third album, because we can stay on the same coast at the same label. Album number 3, Tupac, All Eyes on Me. Look, there's not a lot that can be said about this that hadn't been said. Ambitions as a Rider, California Love, I Ain't Mad at You. Every song on there, most of us know the lyrics to. It's like 27 tracks. Still dope, still listen to it. This album rocked for a solid year. He dropped another album and passed away 6 or 7 months after this album, and this album still kept rocking.
Kept doing it. When I think about this, I think about the song "What's Your Phone Number." To me, it's a throw.
That was my way to the
it's a throwaway
song.
track, but what it
is,
Dr. Dre is on a different plane. For those of you who don't really understand that song, let me help you. A certain rival label made their money with how they chose samples. They chose samples that they were able to not really change, give you a lot of familiarity, and it helped blow up the song. Those of you who have ever heard of the band The Time, they had a song, 777-9311. Dre takes that beat, speed it up, and let Tupac do his thing. And if you know the original song and then you know the content of this song, to say genius seems like a slight, right? Because whether he was conscious, whether Pac was conscious of exactly what they were doing, the product speaks for itself because it's one of those tracks nobody talks about. It's genius.
Yeah, it was the first double disc solo LP in mainstream hip hop, and debuted at #1 on the Billboard 200 with 566,000 units, moved in the first week, and it finalized as certified diamond, the third highest selling rap album of all time.
Certified diamond.
And one good question to ask about that is, do you think he was helped by all his legal drama, or was the album just that good? Both can be an answer.
Yeah, I mean, as far as getting him to the masses, I think the legal trouble helped. I think getting it to the hands of York, Nebraska, getting it into West Virginia, or getting it into Missoula, Montana, or something like that, it polarized him. Getting it into other countries also, it polarized him.
It also moved him into this dual nature, because he moved from who was more like an activist rapper originally in New York, and then he got bang banged, and then he went to jail and came out with this aggression that he didn't express as much early on. He became kind of like a gangster activist poet in a way.
So you're saying he went in as Martin Luther King and came out as Malcolm?
That's a pretty good analogy.
You're spot on. And I think the heart of the Panther in him, I think it always was bubbling underneath the surface, that aggression. I just think it was filtered because he was filtered. Everybody knows, both of us, we've been in studios, we've been around labels and execs, and we've tried to break into the music industry the old school way. You get tailored because A&R will tailor you. He was actually tailored by Digital Underground because they were already established. And so you were kind of coming out of our project. This is kind of how we conduct business, kind of what we do. And he went to jail, and when Me Against the World came out, I think that's where the paradigm shift happened. He got all of that side of him out. Then he was bored for another 6 months. So he had nothing to do with think and do and stir. Because I don't know how you work, but I've never gotten off the road, off a plane, whatever, and the first thing I said was, I'd like to go to work, please. No, I need a nap, a sandwich, a bath, something. Where we eating at? I need to lay it on down. You know what I'm saying? Hey, I give you 10 hours tomorrow, but I'm gonna have to lay it on down tonight. My man came straight out of jail and went to the studio. He got off the plane and went straight to the studio and was there for 18 hours.
Yeah, and on the album, on the music side of it, you know me, I'm all about tone in albums. And this one shifted so much. Like the songs that we named, like California Love, Life Goes On, Ambitions as a Rider, the collabs with Meth and Red, Nate Dogg, Casey and JoJo, How Do You Want It, Two of America's Most Wanted. Each one of those songs has a different tone. On top of the ones we talked about, like What's Your Phone Number and Checkout Time, all of them have a different tone. How the hell did all of this work together? Was the question. Well, I think that's what makes it so beautiful, is there's so many different tones that make up Tupac. That's who he was as a person.
You had a united front, an effort, a movement saying, look, this is it. This is all you work on. So we're producers, other artists, features, everything you do must be in this tone, this voice, this level, this space. Because of that, he was able to come in and come out of different spaces because the album gave him this atmosphere, these spaces, these pockets to move around in, because everybody else was contained in this thing and he was the only free thing moving around. And I really think he needed that. But if you go back and look at it, listen to the 3 previous projects before this, they all had a certain tonality to them. They all had a certain voice, even as he was getting angrier, going from Tupacalypse Now, going to the next joint when Holla If You Hear Me came out, right? You could tell it was, like I said, you could tell it was bubbling underneath. We thought the storm quieted with Me Against the World. We were like, okay. The scripture's written, we're here, and then boom.
Let's swing all the way over to the other coast and go with an album that started with Ain't No Thing But a Chicken Wing. We used to cook that shit up on the grill. Outkast, ATLiens, 1994. I will ask you the first question. Was this the moment the South truly arrived?
Because there was nothing like this album. When I say nothing, pick a coast, pick an artist, pick wherever. In the 90s, we used to have videos they'd play, and then you'd see the To Be Continued at the end of the video. But then you never got the second part of the video. I have never seen seamless transition in a quote unquote To Be Continued from one project to the next. If you listen to Southern Playalistic and you listen to ATLiens, if Southern Playalistic is Big Boy's voice, I don't care what you say, it was written, the album, the project was more in the direction that favored Big Boy's. The second project was written more in the voice to favor Stat. The reason why that's so impressive is because you can name any superhero duo you've ever seen in your life, and they've never switched powers and still been like Batman and Robin has never decided that today Robin is Batman. You'll never see that. You had one album that was in one direction and another album in another direction.
What you're saying is they made this one like a comic book. Yeah, I think they used the comic book. The cover looked like a comic book. Man, you could ride to it, but more funk. More P-Funk influence. This was definitely a P-Funk influenced album. They had those synths, but there was a lot of funk to this album. And God, this was such a fun album, man, because this one rocked in the clubs. It still had enough songs to rock in the clubs. But it still had philosophy to it, man. It still had Andre saying the things about life that Andre wanted to say. And it still fit in there. To come off the back of something that was more trap music and to go into this. They even had a skit on the third album where that guy's like, man, I ain't worried about that new Outkast album. First they were some gangsters, then they were some genies or whatever. Now they some pimps. I don't know. All right, moving on to the next album. Everybody will understand this one because this was another gigantic moment in hip hop. Wu-Tang Clan, Enter the Wu-Tang, 36 Chambers. did a group of 9 MCs make something this raw and yet this cohesive?
I have referred to this album.
How did this fit
I've
together?
referred to this album many times as a train wreck. I have said these exact words. The 36 Chambers, End of the Wu, the 36 Chambers, was a train accident. And I mean, 2 head-on locomotive. It was that kind of accident because you didn't want to look, but you were unable to look away. So if you weren't from the East Coast, you didn't want to, but you were unable to look away. Their first single was the most relatable song in the world. Cash rules everything around me. Who wasn't out there trying to get it? You hustling your demo, your street pharmaceutical rep.
Well, what's right behind that? Protect your neck.
Right? The Wu-Tang were 9 MCs that gave you crew tracks, but they weren't a rap crew.
Here's a quote I found that I think actually does it pretty well. It said it brought kung fu, chess, and 5%er knowledge into the street. That's a pretty good way to do it. And when you've got RZA as your producer, if anybody can do this,
that's true.
At all,
I give you that.
It's RZA. Because those lo-fi loops, man, and he doesn't like a lot of drums. He makes, well, I was going to say he makes movie soundtracks, but he actually did make movie soundtracks for Quentin Tarantino. If anybody can pull that off. But what did this do for hip hop when it came to crews?
Well, I mean, it's inspirational. Think about G-Unit. Think about Dipset. All of these things, I'll go so far to say Slaughterhouse. We are individuals, but we're going to come together. Shady Aftermath. We're all these individual successful artists, but now we're going to make a crew track, a crew project. It gave you the blueprint on exactly what to do. Now, a lot of those did not end up like 36 Chambers, I can assure you that. G-Unit product. But what I'm saying is, it gave you the roadmap on how to be individuals and be a crew simultaneously. They were able to just be in and out. Some of the songs, you'd hear 1 or 2 voices. Some of the songs, you hear 7 or 8 voices. Like at one point, I jokingly said, I'm pretty sure Wu-Tang is up to 27 members. It felt like at this point, they were like
the Bone family.
Yeah, I mean, it felt like at this point, they were a DeVry or ITT Tech. They just had so many people as part of the Wu, you just didn't know.
Here's one dope thing that you were just talking about that we found. They negotiated solo deals. Each one of them negotiated a solo deal, but each member contributed 20% of their solo deal back to the group. Now that is reinventing how a crew keeps power without breaking up. And if you want to question how Wu-Tang's been able to stay together that long, it may be because they were so smart as businessmen.
So think about that. Now think about some of those other crews I named. Are they still together? Are they still doing music? No. Because they took the influence, but they decided to turn when you should have kept straight. They zigged when they should have zagged, so to speak. If you followed it all together, then you get the knowledge and you understand that the entity known as the Wu-Tang Clan must live beyond the solo project, because as long as it lives, we live. Because if you can't do anything solo, we always can do a Wu project.
Ain't nobody bigger than the group,
Wasn't no David Ruffins in the Wu.
They don't come to see you, Method. One last question on there, man. Let me ask you, when Wu was rocking, were you rocking Tommy Hilfigers with the Timbs,
okay,
with the butter Timbs?
New York, don't do me, right? Don't do me, because you know what I'm saying? I'm a gangster night Chuck dude. Like, don't do me. Butter Timbs is heavy, and they have no business on your body in the summer. They hot. I don't care if you unlace them. Butter Timbs is construction boots, and they got steel toes, and they heavy.
Hey, we live in the South. There are only 2 months out of the year where it's even cold enough to wear Butter Timbs.
Now,
those are not 2 months that you want to wear suede shoes that cost you $100 a pair either.
I did rock some Wu gear and the Pele Pele, because when I seen Meth in the Pele Pele overalls, I was in there. Before he got his deal with his own clothing, I seen Meth rocking some Pele Peles. I'm like, whatever, those reversible, I need that. I gotta have that pair. So I did rock the overall joints.
The complete cultural influence when they dropped. Complete cultural influence. And we'll move on to the last one. So the final album, I added this one in just to make BA happy and to prove that I'm not the hater they say I am.
But he in a good way.
I'm not.
It's healthy.
The final album that shaped the 90s barely made it in to the decade, but it had to be in here for two reasons. One, because of what it did for sales, and two, because of what it launched. That album is Eminem, the Slim Shady LP. He had a big Dre cosign.
If I get locked up.
But he had a big Dre cosign, a white dude co-signed by Dre. All right, you're starting off in a good spot because people are going to be even the haters are going to be interested because they're going to be like, I got to see what Dre does with this dude. They did a good job of promoting before he dropped, of promoting his battle rap, that he was this lyrical battle rapper. But they didn't let us know that he was a shock rapper.
No.
We got completely shocked by the fact that he says whatever the fuck he wants to say.
Yeah.
I've always said I didn't like the content, but the lyrical skill it was shock rap with lyrical mastery. So tell me what you thought about Slim Shady. What gave Slim Shady major label credibility so fast?
I think it's, to be honest, I think the content turned a lot of people, but how many people can rap orange? That's all. How many people can find words to
rhyme the word orange?
But here's what I'm gonna say. If your debut song, you start off your first verse talking about three, and I mean three major hardcore rock bands, and you put them in a rhyme scheme, it's interesting. To stay on point throughout a song, that's your introduction song to your alter ego, and never waver from that. And to do it in a video like the Ed Sullivan, there were so many hidden gems and nuggets in how Slim came out. Letting the culture know that this dude can really rap before you got the shock kept us interested. Then when you got the shock, and you're like, okay, well, maybe that's not for me. But then you got
you're Ken Kniff, and
but then you get just the two of us, and you're like, that 97 Bonnie and Clyde.
Rock bottom.
Right? So he gives you one, then he gives you two. I can see where you're at. I can see what you're working with. I think that's what it was. The one thing you never question, whether you go from a white rapper standpoint, an artistry, a historian, whatever standpoint you want to go with, the one thing you can never question is that he unapologetically has been him from his inception. He has always stayed true to, I like to shock people, and this is what I'm going to do. But I also can rap too. So whenever the shock starts to bother you and you feel the need to say something, I need you to remember something. Rule number one, solo Patrick. Rule number two, don't forget rule number one. Like, I feel like that's what he's saying. Like, yeah, I'm gonna hit you with this shock rap on radio. I'm gonna get on video. I'm gonna win a lot of MTV awards. I'm gonna do all that, American Music Awards. I'm gonna do all that. But when BET called me, I'm gonna give you some BET stuff. When the basement called me, I'm gonna give you some basement stuff.
Eminem and Marshall Mathers were always his ways of going back into saying, hey, I like to have fun. Even My Name Is, like the lyrical gymnastics and My Name Is, like that verse when he's like, I'll be in the parking lot circling, and squeezing nurses' butts, jerking with Jergens. The lyrical prowess that he had in that, those multis that he stacked, that was kind of new. People weren't stacking multis quite like that. I mean, multis had existed for a while before then, but people weren't stacking them the way he was. They weren't playing with 2-bar, 4-bar, 8-bar setups and putting 2-bar setups in a 4-bar. They weren't playing with the internal rhyme 6 bars ahead of the next bar. They just weren't playing with stuff the way he was. He won a Grammy for Best Rap Album in 2000, made Rolling Stone's 500 Greatest Albums, 33rd in the 100 Best Albums of the 90s. And as we've said before, he is the streaming champ.
I think it's cool.
The rap
I think it's cool
champ.
that, if you look at his body of work, a lot of people talk about that, but look at his rap influences. Like before Eminem, Detroit didn't really have a sound that resonated nationwide. I'm not saying Eminem was the Detroit sound, but Eminem did make you pay attention to Detroit. But his influences, Rakim, the DOC, Tretch from Naughty by Nature. Now think about how all three of those people rhyme, which they do not rhyme alike. They all have their own cadence, their own style, and their own content. To be able to pull from artists like that and then still hit you with the shock value and his own lyrical gymnastics, it is something special. It really is.
And that's it. Those are the 6 albums that we felt shaped rap in the 90s. If you got some other albums that you felt ranked up there with those, put them down in the comments. And while you're putting them down in the comments, might as well go ahead and smash that like and subscribe button so you can help us out. We'll keep doing these episodes and celebrating classic hip hop so that it never gets forgotten. Thank y'all for sitting in. That'll do it. We out, y'all.
Kick ass.